Stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the manfromleng. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are taking a look at our new parallel investigator. That's right, we have Agnes Baker. FFG unveiled her almost a couple weeks ago at this point, and it has been a hell of a couple weeks for me with COVID-related issues with my kids and whatnot. Hopefully that is behind us, and so we are going to take a look at Agnes Baker today and see what this new Agnes has to offer. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these parallel investigator previews. If you'd like to support the channel's goals and see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Without further ado, let's get started. Agnes has always been a pretty good investigator, unlike Skids, the last parallel investigator that we saw. She has a very nice stat line with 5 willpower. Of course, that is excellent for Mystics. Agnes's response, the ability to ping enemies at her location for 1 damage if she takes a horror, is a very powerful source of direct damage and can really swing a game in your favor. There are a couple of downsides to Agnes, although not necessarily her fault. Mystics do tend to be a little slower than other investigators because they need their enablers in play in order to fight, investigate, and evade effectively. So that means they have to draw cards like Shriveling or Sixth Sense or the Mists of Rillier, and then play those cards before they are really ready to get rolling. And of course, playing those enablers takes resources, which tend to be in short supply in the Mystic class, unless you're playing cards like David Renfield or Uncage the Soul. It doesn't help that a lot of the enablers cost quite a few resources to play, so Mystics can tend to be on the poor side a lot of the time. The other knock against Agnes is her signature asset, the Heirloom of Hyperborea. It is considered to be among the weaker signature assets in the game, especially back in the core set days. There simply weren't a lot of spells that you could trigger the Heirloom in order to draw cards. The situation has improved as the game has matured, and we have a lot more spells to work with these days. But at the beginning anyway, it was generally considered not worth playing the Heirloom in order to try to trigger it to draw cards. You just weren't going to get enough value there. And finally, the other thing about Agnes is that her Elder Sign effect is very swingy. It does depend a lot on the amount of horror on her, which if you draw an Elder Sign early in the game before she's been using her response, that could be 0. Or late in the game, you could be as high as +7 now. It doesn't have any other effect, which a lot of Elder Sign effects do offer, so you're just getting the straight bonus. So it is, while it is fine, it is not one of the better Elder Sign effects in the game. Just a quick reminder of the Parallel Investigator rules. When you are building an Agnes Baker deck going forward, you can choose whether to use the original version or the parallel version of both her front and her back sides. Each version has its own advantages and disadvantages. You can also mix and match the two versions. So this means you can use either the front of the original Agnes and the back of the new one, or the front of the new one and the back of the old one, etc., etc. That gives you a lot of options to mix and match and find the right Agnes build for you. And I think in Agnes's case, it might actually be worthwhile to do some of that mixing and matching, as we shall see. Here is a comparison between the original Agnes Baker and the parallel version. Of course, Agnes Baker from the core set has 5 willpower, 2 intellect, 2 combat, and 3 agility. She's a sorcerer. She has the response: after one or more horror is placed on Agnes Baker, deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location, limit once per phase, and her Elder Sign effect is +1 for each horror on Agnes Baker. She has 6 health and 8 sanity. Parallel Agnes has the same stat line: 5 willpower, 2 intellect, 2 combat, and 3 agility. Again, sorcerer trait, but she has different game text. As an additional cost to play a spell event, you may take 1 damage. If you do, reduce the cost to play that event by 2, and you may shuffle that event back into your deck instead of discarding it. Her Elder Sign effect is +1, and you may heal 1 damage, which of course works very well with her new ability. And they also saw fit to swap her health and sanity, so now she has 8 health and 6 sanity. Again, working very nicely with that new special ability of hers. Now, this special ability is, I think it's quite good. Resources have always been a bit of an issue for the Mystic class, so being able to get a discount of 2 on a lot of very powerful events is quite nice. And then you can, of course, you're going to take a damage, but if you've got 8 health, that will be, you should be able to absorb that as long as you are not using it too often. The other potential downside is if you are playing a scenario that puts a lot of pressure on your health and you're taking a lot of damage, it could effectively blank Agnes, because you won't be able to afford to take the damage in order to trigger this ability. If the scenario is putting out too much damage. But generally speaking, I do quite like the ability to take 1 damage to get that 2 resource discount. There are a lot of expensive Mystic cards, or Mystic events anyway, and this helps. Now, the thing is, a lot of the meat and potatoes Mystic events are either free or they're quite cheap. So we're really looking at some of the Mystic events that don't see a ton of play. So we'll have to evaluate here in a moment how much value you're going to get out of this. Of course, shuffling that event back into your deck instead of discarding it is very nice as well, especially if you are playing a lot of those combat events like Spectral Razor or Storm of Spirits that you expect to need several times during a scenario. You can play it and then shuffle it back into your deck for use later. The designers saw fit to change Agnes's deck size and deck building options as well on the Parallel Investigator. The original Agnes had a deck size of 30. She could use Mystic cards level 0 to 5, Survivor cards level 0 to 2, Neutral cards 0 to 5, and that was pretty much it. Pretty standard for most of the Investigators in the core set. The Parallel version changes things up a little bit. Her deck size drops to 25, similar to the Parallel skids that we saw earlier this year. Her deck building options, she still has Mystic cards level 0 to 5 and Neutral cards level 0 to 5, but now she can use Spell cards level 0 to 3 and Occult cards level 0 to 3. So we'll take a look at which cards are added to Agnes's list here in a moment, but it's not quite as big as you might expect, and her deck building requirements remain the same, but her additional options are similar to the Parallel version of Skids. When you upgrade a spell card, and you may instead pay the full experience cost of the higher level version and leave the lower level version in your deck. It does not count towards your deck size or the number of copies of that card in your deck. So if you were to, say, upgrade from the level 0 version of Shriveling to the level 3 version of Shriveling, you can include both copies in your deck. As long as you pay full price for that level 3 version, You cannot use that the card Arcane Research from Threads of Fate to reduce the cost of that shriveling and then include both copies. You've got to pay full price. So theoretically, with a card like Shriveling, you could have 6 copies in your deck if you have the level 0 version, and then you pay full price to upgrade to the level 3 version, and then again pay full price to upgrade to the level 5 version. You could have 6 copies of Shriveling in your deck, and you would not have to worry about killing enemies. You should be able to draw a copy of Shriveling at that point. And the same goes with a lot of the spell assets that the Mystics have. Mists of Rillier, Rite of Seeking, all of the ones that were released in the Jacqueline Fine starter deck, as well as the new ones that we've seen come out in the Innsmouth Conspiracy campaign. So she starts with a slightly smaller deck size, which can be beneficial. You do have run the risk of seeing your weakness a little more often, but it also, I think most players would agree, playing with a smaller deck is better. And then as you progress through a campaign, you can double up on assets and events, and its spell assets and events. So it's not necessarily just Mystic cards. If there are spell assets and events from other classes that have level 0 and level up to level 3 versions, you can upgrade those as well and include them in your deck and expand your deck size. So a very cool, another very cool ability to play with multiples of the same card, which we haven't been able to do before. So that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at some of the... we're going to start off with the Mystic events that we might be interested in using Agnes's ability with. So again, a quick reminder: you can take 1 damage, and then you can reduce the cost of the event by 2 resources. So we're really looking at, I think, to get the most benefit out of it, obviously you want to be trying to trigger this with events that cost 2 or 3 resources. Now, a lot of the big, the important Seeker events are already free or cost only 1 resource. So you're not going to get a ton of value out of it if you are looking at sort of a mainstream build. So first off, here we have Astral Travel. It's a very good movement event, 3 resources, and I think I'd be quite happy to pay 1 resource for that, especially when at the time that you're going to want to pay for it. Some of the other expensive events: Banish, Bind Monster, Blinding Light. Again, these don't see a lot of play in traditional Mystic decks. And I don't expect that to necessarily change just because you can play them a little bit cheaper in Agnes. There are quite a few very good Mystic events, and these ones tend to have a bit of trouble making the cut because of that. Counterspell 2, it costs 2 resources. Again, that's a nice pickup later in a campaign, and of course you can pay a damage and play it for free and then reshuffle it back into your deck to do some Chaos Bag manipulation. Deny Existence, those are all free. Eldritch Inspiration is free. Ethereal Form, a nice evasion card. It costs 2 resources, so that would be free if you played it with Agnes. Now, Hypnotic Gaze is an interesting one. It costs 3 resources, so typically it's just too expensive for most Mystic decks. Now, will it be worthwhile if you can take the damage to reduce its cost by 2? I'm not convinced that it is, simply because that's sort of the reason you're playing Hypnotic Gaze in the first place, is so you don't take damage. So I guess perhaps if you were taking a huge hit from a big enemy, say you were going to lose 2 or 3 health, playing a Hypnotic Gaze and costing yourself a health is a pretty good deal. But I think against most run-of-the-mill enemies that are dealing, say, 1 damage or 1 horror, you're not really getting any benefit here out of reducing the cost of Hypnotic Gaze. So I'm not too sure the new Agnes is going to make that card any more playable. Mind Wipe, of course, costs 1 resource. Moonlit Ritual costs 0. We've got Open Gate that costs 1. And one of the good ones, this I would definitely use Agnes's ability on Read the Signs. A nice alternative to Drawn to the Flame. So with Agnes's ability, you could play this for free and pick up yourself a couple of clues at locations, and then of course shuffle Read the Signs back into your deck, so you will be able to use it again later in the scenario if necessary. So there are a couple of cards on this list that I would consider using Agnes's ability for. Namely Astral Travel, maybe Counterspell if I purchase that, and I think Ethereal Form has its uses as well as Read the Signs, but a lot of the other cards are either they're free, so you don't have to worry about it, or they're just not making the cut in Mystic decks as it stands. Not that you can't play them in your Mystic decks and benefit from that cost reduction. It's just they don't tend to see a lot of play given the high quality of the Mystic events that are available. That, of course, is just part 1. We've got the rest of the Mystic events. Recharge is free. Now, Spectral Razor, that is an excellent event. That is an amazing combat card for Mystics. Costs 2 resources. I would gladly pay a health and to play that for free and shuffle that back into my deck so I have it later in a scenario. Awesome card. Again, Storm of Spirits, 0 and 3, really, really good. They cost 3 resources, so having that ability to pay 1 health and pay only 1 resource for either of these cards is very, very nice. And of course, you can upgrade Storm of Spirits 0 to Storm of Spirits 3 and have 4 copies of Storm of Spirits in your deck. Now, the one problem with Storm of Spirits is that if you draw one of those special tokens, Storm of Spirits will deal more damage to you. So you could potentially take a couple of damage if you trigger Agnes's ability to play them on the cheap and then draw a special token, which is pretty nasty. I'm not a big fan of taking 2 damage, but Storm of Spirits can deal an incredible amount of damage to a lot of enemies, so it may be worthwhile, which sort of leads me to believe that if you are going to play this sort of Agnes build, Agnes has 8 health, which is good. At least the parallel version does. So if you're playing the parallel version and you want to go the Storm of Spirits route, I think you're going to need to either pack some allies to soak up some of that damage that Agnes is going to suffer, or you're going to need to find some healing, or you're going to have to find a way to mitigate those special tokens. And as some of you are probably very well aware, there's not very many healing cards in the Mystic card pool, and so that is not a great option. And then, of course, there aren't a lot of allies that have that can soak a lot of damage either. So we'll take a look at a few of the options here in a moment. The nice thing is that Parallel Agnes's deck building options do open things up a little bit and give her some options for damage mitigation and healing. And then the rest of the list is mostly 1-cost events. The only one that is 2-cost here is Word of Command, and that costs 2. So I don't think, you could play Word of Protection for free with Parallel Agnes's ability, but at that point you're taking a damage and a horror, which is not super great. So you'll probably end up paying that 1 resource And of course, there are 3 versions of Ward of Protection, so you can include all 3. You can have 6 copies of Ward of Protection in your deck if you're using parallel Agnes's deck building options. So that's, I guess, between that and say if you pick up an ally like Diana Esperance, you could have basically an unlimited number of Ward of Protections to play with during a campaign, during a scenario, and just be able to shut down pretty much every treachery that the deck throws at you. And in the case of Ward of Protection 5, you can, I believe, shut down enemies as well. So that is the events that Agnes has to work with. Again, not a huge number. I was a little surprised about this when I looked through the list. There are some, like Astral Travel and Read the Signs, that I will definitely consider using Agnes's ability, Storm of Spirits as well. But a lot of the main cards are already free or cost only one resource. So I think that sort of pushes Agnes into, or at least parallel Agnes into a sort of a very, there are certain cards that she is going to favor, like Astral Travel, Read the Signs, Storm of Spirits, and Spectral Razor and stuff like that. That's where you're really going to want to use that ability to reduce the cost of those events. Now, Parallel Agnes also gets to pull spell cards from other classes. Here are the events that she has to work with. She can pick up Alter Fate level 1 and level 3 from the Survivor class. She can pick up Blood Eclipse 1 and 3 from Guardian. That's an interesting option, although Blood Eclipse does deal damage again. So if you go that route, Agnes certainly, Parallel Agnes certainly has the health in order to play Blood Eclipse, but you will, if you're going to play it multiple times per game and shuffle it back into your deck, you're definitely going to need some sort of damage mitigation or healing in order to pull that off. We have the Gaze of Araksh from Devil Reef. We've got Hand of Fate from the Seeker card pool from Innsmouth Conspiracy. I believe that is the Hypnotic Gaze analog. We've got Lucid Dreaming and Manipulate Destiny, which she could play anyway. Occult Invocation is a nice pickup from the Seeker card pool. Again, a little bit more event-based combat that you can work with. And then we've got Radiant Smite and Reestrad from the Guardian and Rogue card pools, respectively. So as far as events go, and costly events at that, really we've got Alter Fate 1, which costs 3. We've got the Gate of Araksh, which costs 2. Hand of Fate, which costs 3, and then Occult Invocation that costs 2. So I'm not too sure how often Agnes, Parallel Agnes, will be dipping into to some of these cards. There might be some interesting possibilities that you can play around with Blood Eclipse, because she has the health to work with that one, but a lot of them, she can either play them already in the case of Lucid Dreaming and Manipulate Destiny, or she may not be interested in them at all. So not a great deal of cards spell events in other classes. Now, she can also play spell events level 0, spell assets level 0, 1 to 3. And this basically opens up archaic glyphs, so she can play Guiding Stones, Prophecy Foretold, and Marking of Isis if she wants to go that route. Of course, the level 0 archaic glyph is an occult card, so Agnes can pick that up. We've got Feed the Mind level 0 and level 3. We've got Obfuscation and Suggestion from the Rogue card pool, and Shield of Faith from the Guardian card pool. Shield of Faith is quite an interesting pickup, simply because we were talking a little bit earlier about whether you'd consider playing Hypnotic Gaze. Well, Shield of Faith can, if you're able to put enough Bless tokens in the Chaos bag, you could have Shield of Faith is basically like a permanent Hypnotic Gaze. So the big issue being here that Mystics simply don't have a lot of great ways of adding a lot of Bless tokens to the bag, but you might be able to pull it off and have a cancel combat card on the table. And finally, we come to the occult cards, and not many to speak of here, but they are quite powerful. A lot of these, of course, Archaic Glyphs is quite powerful because you can pick up Guiding Stones. The Cryptic Grimoire Untranslated, that might be a little bit tough for a Parallel Agnes build to pull off, considering you need to keep 10 curse tokens in the bag. Now, a Hallowed Mirror is a very interesting pickup for her, and that opens up Soothing Melody, which of course heals horror and damage. So that's one way that you could mitigate some of the damage and horror that Agnes is taking from these cards, from her ability. So say if you want to play Storm of Spirits, you take a damage, maybe you take another damage if you get unlucky and draw the wrong token, but Hallowed Mirror can heal that up. And so that is an interesting choice. It does conflict with the accessory slot, which is quite competitive in the Mystic class, but I think in a Parallel Agnes build, picking up something like Hallowed Mirror might be worth it, just for that the ability to heal damage and horror. Another interesting choice is the Occult Lexicon, which gives you access to the spell Bloodright. Again, some card draw, which is always helpful in Bloodright, and then the ability to deal even more direct damage to enemies is quite nice as well. A staple in a lot of the Seeker decks that I play these days, and so it's nice to see that it is an option here for Agnes as well. And it takes up the Occult Lexicon takes up a hand slot, so it's not competing with that precious arcane slot of hers. And finally, we come to the segment of Onyx, which was recently hit with the not the ban hammer, but it was hit pretty hard in the recent FAQ, and so it is. We already know how powerful Segment of Onyx can be, so that is an option for Agnes as well. So we talked a little bit about Parallel Agnes and some of the options that she has available. Now, she does have 8 health, which is very nice, but if you do run into a scenario that puts a lot of pressure on her health, you could run into some problems. As we've seen, you're probably, depending on the deck you've built, you may not be using Agnes's special ability to reduce the cost of these events as often as you may expect. While there are some very good events that can certainly benefit from it, a lot of the staples in the Mystic card pool are either free or only cost 1 resource. So if you are playing a lot of those expensive Mystic events, you're probably going to want to look at some way of either healing the damage you're taking, mitigating that damage, or preventing it from happening in the first place. And unfortunately, the Mystic card pool does not have a lot in that respect. So we can look at first off the ally list. Mystics have a lot of fantastic allies, but most of them only have 1 health. So they don't have, if you're hoping to sort of pawn off some of that damage on your allies, they're going to be dying quite rapidly unless you are playing certain allies. David Renfield has 2 health, which is quite nice. He also provides resource generation, which is huge. Diana Esperance has 3 health, which is, I think, the most of any of the Mystic allies. And you can also stack an event on her and play it repeatedly. So say if you include 4 copies of Storm of Spirits in your deck, and then you stack one of them on Diana Esperance and shuffle the others back into your deck, you've basically, I think you've got at that point an unlimited supply of Storm of Spirits for most of the game. The other option is Summoned Hound, which has quite a few health as well. But yeah, the Mystic allies don't have a ton of health. Most of them just have 1, so you're not going to be able to pawn off a lot of that damage on them. Of course, Parallel Agnes's Elder Sign effect is quite nice. It's, I think, stronger than good old regular Agnes's, because while it is just +1, you do get to heal a damage. So that does provide some healing there as well. So that's one option. Allies are another. There's only a couple allies you probably want to consider in this type of deck, because the rest will simply die too quickly. We also have a few other cards that you could use. Now, there's Healing Words. It has enters play with 3 charges. You can spend a charge to heal 1 damage from an investigator at your location, and it takes up an arcane slot. I think this is probably the worst option that you could consider. It's just not a very good use of your arcane slot or your actions or your resources. It's just it's very slow, and there are much better ways, I think, of damage mitigation and healing available. You don't even get to play it at a discount with Agnes's ability. Like, it does cost 2 resources, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of these cards that take an action to play, an action to trigger before you get any sort of effect. And I think Agnes has way better cards that take up the arcane slot to play rather than this. Now, we talked a little bit about Hallowed Mirror earlier. Hallowed Mirror gives you access to 3 copies of Soothing Melody, which can heal 2 damage or 2 horror or any combination of thereof from among investigators and ally assets at your location, and you get to draw a card. Now, this is amazing. For an investigator like Agnes, you can use the 2 damage to heal. You can heal that 2 damage that you're taking using Agnes's ability. Healing horror is always nice. If you're playing an ally like Diana Esperance and you've put a couple of damage on her, suddenly she's back up to full health. That is very nice. And of course, you get to draw a card on top of all that. So yes, I think this is a very good option for the Parallel Agnes if you want to go the Hallowed Mirror route and add some Soothing Melody to your deck to deal with some of that damage that you are taking from Parallel Agnes's special ability. Now, I talked a little bit at the beginning about, because of the deck building restrictions, you can play the original Agnes front with the parallel back and mix and match in that way. And I think actually one good option is to play with Parallel Agnes front and Original Agnes back, which gives you access to the Survivor card pool. And of course, that opens up Jessica Hyde. Now, Original Agnes was joined at the hip with Peter Sylvester due to his ability to heal horror. And I think Parallel Agnes, you could definitely join her at the hip with Jessica Hyde, who basically does the same thing for damage. So if you are playing a lot of expensive events with Parallel Agnes, you can take that damage, dump it on Jessica, and Jessica will heal at the end of every one of your turns, basically eliminating the downside of Parallel Agnes's ability. So as long as you're not stretching Jessica too far, you can take that damage, dump it on Jessica, and then shuffle that event back into your deck, and that would be very nice. Of course, Jessica also works if you go that Storm of Spirits route and you're worried about taking a damage from Agnes's ability and a damage from Storm of Spirits. Jessica can absorb a lot of that damage and heal it away, and you're good to go. So I think Jessica is if you want to mix and match and go with Parallel Agnes front and Original Agnes back, that is a very nice option to have. The other option, of course, is if you want to mitigate some of those special tokens, you can play cards like Eldritch Inspiration. We've got the level 0 event that was in the Circle Undone and the level 1 version that was in the Jacqueline Fine starter deck. This is a very nice way of canceling that effect on Storm of Spirits if you go that route, or you could also use it on pretty much any of the Mystic assets that we've seen, like Shriveling, Rite of Seeking, etc., to cancel the downsides of those effects. So that is another option that you can pursue if you are interested in playing the Parallel Agnes. So not only do we get a Parallel Agnes, but we get parallel versions of her signature asset, Heirloom of Hyperborea, and her signature weakness, Dark Memory. Just a quick reminder about the rules regarding the advanced signature cards. You, regardless of which version of Agnes Baker you use, you may optionally upgrade Agnes's signature cards to her new advanced signature cards, replacing the original versions. These are included only as a set, so if you include the Heirloom of Hyperborea, you need to include the advanced Dark Memory. I guess you could go the other way as well, but I don't see why you'd just include the Dark Memory. Doing so costs no experience, and you may be done at any point during the campaign. However, once the upgrade is made, it cannot be undone unless you are instructed otherwise. It is worth noting that the Bad Blood scenario does give one of the rewards for completing it successfully is that you can downgrade Dark Memory from its advanced version to its original version, or upgrade Heirloom of Hyperborea from its basic version up to its advanced version. So you can split them if you successfully complete the Bad Blood scenario. Now, I mentioned at the top that Heirloom of Hyperborea is considered one of the weaker signature assets in the game. It costs 3 resources, which is a lot for a Mystic. It has willpower, combat, and wild skill icons. The item and relic trait, Agnes Baker deck only, and the response after you play a spell card, draw 1 card, and it takes up an accessory slot. At the beginning of the game, back in the core set days, there simply weren't a lot of spell cards to go around, so spending 3 resources to play this card, and then hoping that you, she relied on Shriveling a lot of the time to get the job done, and preferably you wanted that down very early in the scenario. So by the time you had Shriveling down and maybe Rite of Seeking, there just wasn't a lot of spells to play, and so the Heirloom was kind of pointless. But I think the new Heirloom is, a vast improvement. It still has the after you play a spell card, draw 1 card, but it does have willpower, combat, and 2 wild skill icons. So that's very nice. You could, it's basically an unexpected courage, or if you're taking a willpower or combat skill test, it's 3 icons. So that is very nice in itself. Only damage and or horror from player card effects can be assigned to the Heirloom of Hyperborea, but it does have 3 health and 3 sanity, which is huge. Now, you can only put damage and or horror from player card effects, but we have Agnes's ability. First star parallel, Agnes's ability is a player card effect, so if you take damage, you can dump it on the Heirloom. Shriveling is a player card effect. If you take a horror, you can dump it on the Heirloom. Storm of Spirits is a player card effect. If you take a damage, you can dump it on the Heirloom. So this gives you a nice little pool of health and sanity that can absorb those effects, which is, I mean, that's awfully nice to have. Shriveling alone, I mean, it doesn't come up every scenario, but it will hit you periodically for a horror. So having a place to dump that is quite nice. If you're playing the parallel Agnes, you're going to be taking damage, so the Heirloom comes in handy there as well. And then if you go the Storm of Spirits route and you're concerned about taking damage, if you draw the wrong token, again, you just dump it on the Heirloom and forget about it. So I think that is the Heirloom is better. I do like the additional wild skill icon. If you end up having to commit this to a skill test, it's quite nice. And then, of course, having that extra pool of health and sanity to play around with to mitigate some of the downsides of those player card effects is very welcome indeed. Now, the Dark Memory is Agnes's signature weakness, and it does not change all that much, with the exception that the basic version costs 2 resources. You place a doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance. Forced, if Dark Memory is in your hand at the end of your turn, reveal it to take 2 horror. So basically, this thing will hit you for a bunch of horror unless you play it. You pay the 2 resources to play it to put 1 doom on the current agenda. Now, the only difference between the basic and the advanced version is the advanced version costs 4 resources. So this is, that's pretty steep, but you can use Parallel Agnes's special ability to reduce that by 2. So basically making it cost the same as the non-advanced version, although you are taking a damage. So you're adding a doom and taking a damage as opposed to just adding a doom. Is that worth putting that in your deck if you're playing the Heirloom? I think it is. If you're playing the parallel version, I think the Heirloom is probably worth upgrading, and so playing the advanced version of Dark Memory is not that bad. You are going to have to take a health to pay off. You'll probably end up paying a health to reduce the cost of it by 2, but otherwise it does the same thing. And of course, you can dump that health. If you've got the Heirloom out, you can dump that damage on the Heirloom. So you're basically not paying anything for it. Now, if you're playing the original Agnes, I'm not convinced that that upgrading to the Heirloom is going to be worthwhile. Because this costs 4 resources, that is very steep. And you will not have a very easy way to reduce the cost of this. So if you pull this Dark Memory at the wrong time, you could end up taking a lot, and I mean a lot, of horror. 4 resources is very steep for a Mystic deck, so I would be a little bit wary of upgrading to the Heirloom and Dark Memory if I was playing the original Agnes, simply because she does not have a very easy way of reducing the price tag of this thing. So the effect is the same, but man, those 4 resources are going to hurt. And even if you do manage to pay 4 resources, that can cripple you. most mystics are only gaining one resource a turn unless you've got somebody like David Renfield on the table. And so you could end up crippling yourself for the remainder of a scenario if you have to play this at the wrong time. Now, if you've got a deck with David Renfield in it, if you've got, I think you can use Uncage the Soul on this one. I may be mistaken about that, but I think you can. If you've got some ways like that, then you may be okay. But if you're using another ally, such as the Arcane Initiate, or maybe Diana or Alyssa, or any of those other allies that are available, I'd be a little wary of upgrading to the better Heirloom and the more expensive Dark Memory. That brings us to the scenario, Bad Blood. We get to see in this scenario, there are spoilers ahead, lots of spoilers ahead for this scenario. So if you want to play this scenario blind, you probably want to turn off the video now, because I'm going to be going through the scenario in some detail. The premise is that another Hyperborean sorcerer, Elspeth, has showed up in Arkham, and you have to grab memories from the locations in play. There are, I believe, 8 or 9 memories in total, and once all the memories have been picked up, the scenario ends. So Elspeth is trying to collect memories, and you're trying to collect memories, and then if you end up with more than Elspeth at the end of the scenario, you basically get the good ending, and if Elspeth ends up with more, you end up with the bad ending. The good ending in this case being you can upgrade to the better Heirloom, or downgrade to the worse or the easier Dark Memory. The bad ending being you have to upgrade to the worse Dark Memory, and or downgrade to the worse Heirloom. So there is also quite a bit of experience on the table. I believe there are you could potentially earn 8 or 9 experience points, although I don't know how realistic that will be, considering that you are competing with Elspeth for those memories. Each location that doesn't have a memory at the end of the game counts as a victory point. But Elspeth is a tough cookie, so she is likely to gain some memories throughout the scenario. So we have Agenda 1A here, Hyperborean Blood. It has the forced effect. At the end of the enemy phase, if Elspeth Bowden is ready and there is a memory at her location, you reveal a random token from the Chaos Bag and place it on that location. This is a new mechanic that we haven't seen before. So at the end of the enemy phase, you simply take a token from the Chaos Bag and put it on her location. It has another forced effect. If there are 1 or more Chaos tokens on a location without a memory, you return them to the Chaos Bag. So as soon as Elspeth grabs a memory at a location, all those tokens go back into the bag. If there are Chaos tokens on a location with a memory that have a combined value of 6 or more, ignoring plus or minuses and treating the auto-fail and Elder Sign tokens as a -6, return them to the Chaos Bag, and Elspeth Bowden collects that memory. And it has a Doom threshold of 8. So Elspeth basically sits at a location. Each turn you pull tokens from the Chaos Bag until you have a value of 6 or more. Elspeth will grab that memory, and then the following enemy phase she will move to the next location, and you rinse and repeat. Now, the downside, Agenda 1B, Out for Blood. Elspeth Bowden attacks each investigator in player order, regardless of their current location, even if she is exhausted. Flip this agenda back over. So as soon as Elspeth, as soon as you hit that 8 Doom threshold, Elspeth is attacking everyone on the table, regardless of where they are, and then you reset the agenda deck. So So we will take a look at Elspeth here in a moment. There is one act. As you can see, these use the this scenario uses Threads of Fate as its basis. Act 1A, a walk down memory lane. You must recover the lost memories of your previous life before Elspeth does. As a free triggered ability, investigators at Agnes Baker's location may spend 2 clues per investigator. As a group, Agnes Baker collects the memory at her location. Forced effect, if Agnes Baker is defeated, you proceed to R2, so you get the bad ending. And the objective is collect more memories than Elspeth. If all 9 memories have been collected by either party, advance. So basically you will the race is on to collect 9 memories. If you don't do that before the agenda advances, the agenda will advance. Elspeth attacks everybody. You reset the agenda and keep on playing. Agnes needs 2 clues per investigator as a group to collect a memory at her location. And I believe she starts the game at Velma's Diner, which is appropriate. So you will need to basically grab clues, then take the free triggered ability to spend those clues to grab the memory. And then, so you will need, judging by this, your Agnes deck will need, one, you're going to need to have some very good investigation in it. You're going to need to be able to grab clues. So that means playing cards like Rite of Seeking, Sixth Sense, Drawn to the Flame, Read the Signs. All of those cards are going to come in handy to pick up all of those clues that you need. And then once you spend the clues, once you're at a location with a member, you can spend 2 of those clues, pick up that memory, and keep on trucking. So you're going to need some good investigation. You're going to probably need a way to deal with Elspeth's attack if you're not fast enough. Mystics do take some time to set up, so I could definitely see a situation where if you get a bad draw at the beginning of this scenario, poor Agnes is going to struggle to get the tools she needs to investigate down on the table. And then Elspeth is going to take a big lead, and it's going to be very hard for Agnes to dig herself out of that hole. So that is a potential issue. Now, the backside of Act 1B, once all 9 memories are off the table, you get Memory of the Eternal Conquest. If you've collected more memories than Elspeth, you get R1, so you get the good ending. And if Elspeth has collected more than Agnes, you get R2, which is the bad ending, and we've already discussed the pros and cons of that. And of course, each I can't remember how the victory points work, but I think it's you get Agnes gets victory points based on the number of memories she collects. So if you're able to collect, the more memories you get, the better you do in terms of experience points. It differs a little bit for the other investigators if you're playing it that way. We come to Elspeth. Elspeth Bowden, Hyperborean Sorceress, Humanoid Sorcerer Elite. She has 8 fight, 4 health per investigator, 8 evade. That is massive. So she is not an enemy that you fight just for the hell of it. She is tough. Now, 4 health per investigator in solo, that's not too bad. But man, even with a 5 willpower, if you've got just the basic shriveling, you're going to need to be committing some cards to the skill test. Let's take a look at the rest of her card. Alert. So if you try to evade and fail, she's attacking you for 2 health and 2 sanity. Ouch. She's got Patrol, so she will move to the nearest location with at least 1 memory. So she doesn't have Hunter. Patrol was introduced in the standalone scenario, the hotel one. So she'll basically just move to another location with the memory to keep her moving. And she has Retaliate as well. So if you try to shrivel her and you miss and you draw a bad token, potentially you're taking 3 horror and 2 damage. So, ow, that is not great. Now, there is hope. Elspeth Bowden cannot be automatically evaded. So no, you can't chuck a cat at her and get away from her. And she gets -1 fight and -1 evade for each memory she has collected. So as Elspeth collects memories, she gets easier to fight. So in the event that scenario I talked about where Agnes gets a little bit behind, maybe she doesn't draw the investigate cards she needs, and Elspeth gets out to a nice lead, picks up a few memories while Agnes struggles. Elspeth does get a little bit weaker as the game goes on, so Agnes does have an opportunity to sort of catch up this way. And the way that Agnes catches up is just by beating up Elspeth. So when Elspeth Bowden would be defeated, instead heal all damage from her, flip her over, and resolve the text on her other side, which is Triumph and Subjugation. Agnes Baker must decide, choose one. Agnes Baker collects a memory from Elspeth. Agnes Baker gains 2 clues from the token bank, which of course she can use to convert into a memory if there happens to be one on a location. And then she flips it back over, exhausted and unengaged, and back to full health. So if Agnes gets a little bit behind, or Elspeth gets the chaos tokens that you're randomly pulling from the bag and placing on the location don't work out for you, and Elspeth gets out to a lead, picks up a couple of memories, then Agnes can move in and try to cut her down a few times to grab those memories. I don't know, even let's say she has 3 memories, then she's still a 5 fight, 5 evade with 4 health. That is pretty tough. And of course, as soon as you grab, say she has 3 memories, you grab one of them, now she's at 6 fight and 6 evade with alert and retaliate. Man, Elspeth is not an easy enemy to deal with. And of course, every time she attacks you, whether that's because the agenda has advanced and she attacks you from wherever you are, you're taking 2 damage and 2 horror. And if you try to evade her, you're taking damage and horror and fail. And if you try to fight her and fail, you're taking damage and horror. So she is a very difficult enemy, and I'm looking forward to seeing how easy it will be for Agnes to grab memories off her. My heart tells me that if Elspeth gets a little bit ahead of you and grabs a few memories, then it could be very taking her down the first couple times will be, 4 health though, man, like that's like if you're using a basic shriveling or even like basic spectral razor, I think deals 3, but that's just an event, so you're going to need to hit her again. So that's basically, I think for most mystics, that's 2 attacks. 2 attacks at an above average fight value is not a position I want to be in. So it's going to be tough. I think if she gets a sizable lead and you're just trying to grab a few of the memories off her, you might be able to grab a couple, but then she's sort of going to hit that 5, 6, 7 fight value. And man, if you miss, you're going to be in deep trouble. And of course, if Agnes dies, you get the bad ending. Now you could end up in a situation, I think, where Elspeth, say you're tied 4-4 or something like that. So she'd be a 4 fight. Agnes moves in, hits her, grabs a memory, and then dumps, say she has a couple clues, and then grabs the last memory on the table to end up at 6-3. That might be a viable strategy. So let Elspeth do some of the work, but then you have to move in and take at least 1 from her. and then end the game as quickly as possible, because according to Triumph and Subjugation, Elspeth is flipped over exhausted and unengaged, so that does give Agnes that opportunity to either grab the clues she needs in order to get that last memory on the table, or maybe just get away to get to that last location, so she can grab those clues and then convert them to a memory. So it's man, this one has me intrigued. Elspeth is no joke, and Agnes can hold her own in combat with 5 willpower, but that 4 health, that's gonna you're not gonna be able to kill Elspeth a lot. I think maybe if you are able to take her down once per game, that is probably where you want. Like that's about all you want to do. You don't want to have to be fighting her too much, because she will chew you up. If you get a few bad token draws, man, you could end up this whole scenario could just swing from one. You could be leading, and then all of a sudden you're dead because you've just taken. Say you miss. You move in, you miss, you fail to evade, she deals a couple damage and horror to you, and then the agenda advances, then you get attacked again. Like that's 4 damage and 4 horror. Man, rough. So that's bad blood, and yeah, it's an interesting one. Some new mechanics with the chaos tokens. That's always interesting to see. And I really like how the designers are using reusing these scenarios basically to reinventing them for these parallel investigators. I'm not too sure. I've just basically been talking about this in solo with the 4 health, but man, if you're playing this in 4-player, Elspeth has 16 health. That is going to take some doing to take her down. I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, a well-equipped guardian can hammer her pretty hard, but yeah, you're definitely going to want to get, I think, the lion's share of the memories, because trying to take her down is going to be very difficult indeed. That's going to do it for our look at the Agnes Baker Parallel Investigator. The Parallel Investigators have, I think all of them have been fascinating from a design perspective, and Agnes is no different. Quite a bit different from her original version, with a new ability that addresses some of the resource issues that Mystics can have. I don't think it addresses it quite as much as I expected. When I saw the ability at first, I was like, hey, 2 resources off, a lot of events. That's very good at the cost of a damage. She's got the health to take that, to absorb that. But when you take a look at the list of events, there aren't that many that are going to qualify. There are a few really good ones. Like Spectral Razor, Read the Signs, Storm of Spirits, stuff like that are going to be no-brainers to be using with Agnes. I'd even throw Astral Travel in that list. But a lot of the good events that Mystics rely on are either free or only cost one resource. So I don't think you want to be, unless you're really desperate, I don't think you want to be exchanging a damage for a resource all that often. But I mean, the designers did think of everything in this case. They give Agnes some new deck building options, which incorporate some healing, which is nice in the form of Hallowed Mirror. We have a slightly larger collection of spells to draw from. I'm not too sure how many of those are going to find their home in an Agnes deck, but it's nice to have the options. It's nice to have the options of the occult. So if you want to explore what the archaic glyphs have to offer, or the occult lexicon, and of course the Hallowed Mirror, Those are some nice options. Agnes's ability, her Elder Sign effect, heals damage, which is nice. So if you were to combine that with the Hallowed Mirror, you've got some nice healing going on there. And then finally, of course, you have her new signature assets, the new Heirloom of Hyperborea, which comes with 3 health to mitigate some of that damage that Agnes is taking. And it has 3 sanity as well. So if you combine some of those high-priced events like Spectral Razor and Read the Signs with good old Shriveling and the Heirloom, you can draw a couple bad tokens a game, and the Heirloom will take that horror for you. So that's pretty nice. So a different look at Agnes. I'm excited to play it, and I'll be back. I'll be back with a game of Bad Blood here shortly. We'll see how Agnes can whether Agnes can hold her own against Elspeth.